Hi everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp, to the video where we recap the highest scores on SwitchUp for our reviews for the last month.
Yes, these are our reviews for the month of October. A very packed month, as you'll see in a moment. We've got our 10 highest scores here to share with you, ranging from the lowest, obviously, up until the highest.
Yeah, some really good games here. Let us know what ones you've played and which ones maybe you missed and you're going to put onto your wish list. Now, what are they? Well, let's find out.
Okay, let's start in 10th place then. We had Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8 Remake. So this is a series that's been going for a long while now. I think there's 14 games in the mainline series, and this obviously is a remake of that 8th game. And Holden really enjoyed both the complexity but the accessibility of this particular version, although he did feel that the visual section could have done with more of a revamp than it actually got. In fact, he felt that the original perhaps had more charm than this new remake in that area.
Nice, yeah, that's sometimes the case, isn't it? They try and jazz things up and it ends up actually detracting from a certain feeling that the game gave you.
Yeah, for sure. That out of the way though, if you like this sort of game, that kind of management simulation where you're dealing with many different areas, spinning many different plates at the same time, this is a very good game in that respect, and it got a SwitchUp score of 77%. Right, we've got a joint 8th place now, and the first of those is Home Safety Hotline. This was, I think, the first review of the month, and it's been such a busy month I'd forgotten it even existed until a moment ago. So this is an analog horror game, so basically it's set in the 90s, heavy emphasis on 90s technology, takes you back to that time almost where you work for the titular Home Safety Hotline, advising homeowners on a variety of problems. It starts quite domestic and usual, I guess, in terms of things like termites or mice perhaps, and then it has this otherworldly element to it where they're phoning about goblins and sprites as well. It's quite interesting. I will say that I expected a completely different game when I started. I thought it was going to be a bit like the movie Phone Booth, you know, when you're stuck in an area and you can't get out and you're having to do something. So I had to kind of recalibrate my expectations when I played it. But once I'd done that, I did enjoy my time with it. It's not got a huge amount of replay value. It does have another ending, so there's a bit there, but not a bad game. Certainly if you have some nostalgia for the 90s. It got a SwitchUp score of 79%.
Also in joint 8th, we have Shin-chan, Shiro and the Coal Town, which is the second Shin-chan game on Switch that, well, at least that I've played. And it follows Crayon Shin-chan as he basically goes on a little adventure and finds this separate town while on holiday called Coal Town. There's an evil dictator. He's trying to help overthrow him whilst building the town back to its former glory. It's quite a good game. The thing with it was that it got quite repetitive and it didn't allow you options for selling of items. Now that might sound a bit odd, but you could grow things, you could go around the world and search for hidden things, but then you couldn't sell any of it and you actually need to buy quite a few items for some of the quests. That was its biggest issue really. Later in the game it introduced a very unusual mechanic where you're riding around on like a minecart.
Right, yeah.
And actually, initially I thought, oh, this is a bit rubbish. You haven't even got to get first to win. But as more complex tracks get introduced, it's actually quite a good, nice little, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's not like a side quest or side story. It's like a little...
It was his own gameplay mechanic, wasn't it, by the end? It wasn't just, as you say, like a little side game you could play.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. And it becomes intrinsic to the story. You're kind of battling against some of the leadership and stuff. And I enjoyed it. It actually added quite a bit later in the game where I was beginning to get a bit tired. Now, good game overall though, but just not great. It got a SwitchUp score of 79%. Then you've got DROVA, Forsaken Kin. Now this is one of those where, scores aside, it's probably up there with my favourite of the month. It's a very enjoyable action RPG in this pixelated style, but it does a few very nice bits of scripting. For example, at the beginning of the game, you go to a town area and the guy's like, oh, if you do this quest for me, I'm going to give you my favourite armour. Right. And then I just got my lockpicks out, went into his house, stole the armour and kind of walked out. You're thinking, I'd never do that.
Yeah, I am thinking that. Yeah,
and he was like, what are you doing? You've got my armour on. Take it off now, I'm going to kill you. So I didn't, and he did.
Oh, fair enough.
And I was like, yeah.
True to his word.
Exactly. And I was like, yeah, this is a bit of me.
Yeah.
So if you like your action RPGs with a little bit more depth in terms of mechanics, then yeah, I'd go check this review out. It got a SwitchUp score of 85%.
Lovely. Joint 5th now then, and similar to what you just said about the previous game, I enjoyed this one. Probably my second most enjoyable game of the month, albeit it's come in 5th place. That's Crow Country. This is a survival horror game. Again, very much harkens back to the 1990s, games like Silent Hill and Resident Evil, of course. It doesn't have a fixed camera perspective. I did initially think it would have, but you can move the camera about. It does all the things that those games did, and it does them very well. And I liked the setting. You're in this kind of abandoned theme park, which I thought worked very well for the horror. I didn't personally like the character sprites. It kind of had this strange dumpy, these 3D character models that, to be fair, did evoke kind of the PlayStation 1 era, but I don't think they worked particularly well in a survival horror game. That aside though, I loved the mechanics. I really enjoyed kind of the item management and the way that enemies respawned every time you went into an area. So the game got progressively harder through that, which was quite an interesting take on it all. Yeah, really good game. Definitely would recommend this one if you love Resident Evil and want something, new but old at the same time. This got a SwitchUp score of 86%.
Lovely. In joint fifth as well, we've got Yakuza Kiwami. Now this worked out, this was a right touch, because someone basically suggested that I play the Yakuza series maybe like, let's say a year directly before this review was kind of due.
Yeah.
So I played it on Xbox Game Pass, and it was, I really enjoyed it. It did remind me a lot of Sleeping Dogs, and I think you played that as well.
I played that on the Xbox 360, yeah, I like that game. It was a good game, yeah.
That's another that we should definitely get a port of.
Yeah.
But it's basically sees you playing as one of the Yakuza family members who finds himself in a situation where he has to make the right choice, but it's going to put him in prison for a long time. So you kind of pick up after the decade he spent in jail, and he's not himself. Like, he's not got the same skill set. There's people kind of treating him differently,
right? And
he builds himself back up. That old chestnut.
Yeah.
But he uses a really interesting action combat system that has 4 different styles of combat that you can switch between. And one particular style called Dragon Style can only be improved by beating this very, very unusual eye-patched fella who just pops up to fight you.
Right.
I think he just wants the challenge and he wants you to be back to your former glory.
Oh, fair enough, yeah.
So yeah, very good game actually. It ran well on Switch as well, although there were a few places in the open streets where performance did dip down a little. Overall, very solid and well worth adding to your collection on Switch. It got a SwitchUp score of 86%. Which takes us on to third place, and that's Kill Night. This is funny because it feels in my mind like it didn't feature massively in the month.
Yeah, I think again, like the one I mentioned right at the start, just such a busy month that some games kind of slip your mind, don't they?
Yeah, when it's a solid month like this, a very good game can end up in third.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is the case. So Kill Night is a tough, very, very difficult experience, but also really fair. And we kind of speak about this a lot. We don't mind games that are difficult as long as it's fair.
Yeah.
If you died because, you slipped up, not a problem. If you died because of RNG, problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is that. Really tight controls, very small spaces that kind of gradually expand. Twin stick mechanics, you're doing melee damage as well to build up one of your bars so that you can then do more secondary attacks. It's just really a nice tight experience, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of fun this one. There are a lot of these sort of games kind of creeping out these days, those almost twin stick shooters where you're in a confined space and having to take down waves of enemies, and obviously they go all the way back to the arcades, but it's always great to find a new one that updates the formula but gets the feeling bang on, and this definitely did that. It got a SwitchUp score of 87%.
In joint second place then, we've got Super Mario Party Jamboree. So Super Mario Party Jamboree takes things in a slightly different direction. It gives you more arenas, or whatever you want to call them, to play in, boards. And we very much enjoyed our time with it. And we're not massive Mario Party fans, are we?
No, we're not. It was a lot of fun. We played it, us two, we played it separately with our kids and whatnot and our families. And it's definitely a fun game. And if you enjoy the Mario Party games over the years, you'll have a lot of fun with this one for sure. It revisits a few older boards, and I always like it when games do that. I'm thinking more things like Mario Kart, where they modernise an older track, for example. I think that always works well. Nintendo have made sure that things like performance are bang on here and it looks fantastic. But if you are into the Mario Party series, and obviously with Christmas coming as well, this could be an essential pickup. If you've got family over, very good game. SwitchUp score of 88%.
In joint second with that, we've got S.T.A.L.K.E.R, The Legends of the Zone trilogy that seemed to suddenly drop. I knew it was coming, and then it was suddenly, imminently coming
here,
the next week. And these are 3 of my favourite games from my childhood, but very often that means you go back and you're disappointed.
Yeah.
I actually went back and was like, man, these are better than 99% of the modern versions of these types of games.
Right.
So you've got an RPG survival first-person shooter, which isn't I know it's not a 10 a penny kind of combination, but still we have had a few, mostly on PC since then, and these hold up brilliantly. The developer have also done a few little bits, like I've got to mention gyro, Glen, it has to be done.
Yeah.
They've put that in, although it's back to front, and that's for another day. But the actual core story of it's so hands-off, and in a world of tutorials, it's lovely that the first conversation you have, he's like, do you know what you're doing, or do you want me to give you a load of spiel?
Yeah, it's always the way to do it,
isn't it?
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, I know what I'm doing. And off you go. And even if you say, give me the spiel, it's pretty basic, and it leaves it up to the player to kind of create their own adventure. Amazing games. I would suggest checking out the reviews of these if you've not played them, or you're not sure if it's your genre, because I might be able to talk you into it, to be honest, because they're great quality games. Now, across the three, the performance was also very good. That's something that's quite important. 30 FPS, pretty much locked out across the board, which again is another insane achievement. I was going to say the engine then. I know it's a proprietary one, but I'm amazed they've got it working this well, because I had to build a new computer to get this running.
Yeah.
And I've said that a few times over the years.
Yeah.
So playing it on a little tablet, man, awesome. It got a SwitchUp score of 88%.
And that takes us into number 1 for the month then. And in first place we had Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven. Now this is a remake of a Super Famicom game. It didn't release here in the West, and I've got a funny history with this game, because it was a game I always wanted to play and obviously couldn't, and then it got released in a remastered form on the Switch, so it's on the Switch in kind of 2 versions if you like, and I couldn't get on board with it. And then obviously this remake was announced, and I had this trepidation of like, this could either be the one, or finally I'm like, yes, this is the game I've always wanted to play, or again, it's just not for me. And thankfully it was the former. It's fantastic. Such a good game. It's an RPG, but it does have a few quirks in terms of how it deals with things that I really enjoyed. You first of all have the fact that in terms of the story, you don't play as just one character or one party. You move through the ages of a bloodline almost, and have the successors to the throne.
That's cool, isn't it?
Which I liked. Yeah, I did enjoy that. And you pass your powers or your strengths on to the next person each time. And then you had the classic tropes of the Saga series, things that the Saga games always do, which I just think are great. You have things like you don't level up in the traditional way. The more that you use particular aspects or moves or spells, that sort of thing, then they level up.
Nice.
So it keeps you always using a nice variety of moves if you don't want to end up with quite an unbalanced character.
Yeah.
I just think that works fantastically well. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought this was fantastic. Very refreshing in an age where RPGs are 10 a penny, let's be honest. And it got a SwitchUp score of 91%.
So that's it. Those are our top scores. Now, there are a few games that we have been playing, obviously, that haven't got scores in that month, but they'll maybe feature in the next month. But there's probably also a few that we haven't been able to cover. Let us know down in the comments. Actually, there's one, that Farmalgia game.
Farmalgia, yeah.
Farmalgia. I quite wanted to get a review. It just looks interesting, doesn't it? So yeah, let us know down in the comments.
Don't forget, if you're looking for eShop credit to pick any of these games up, you can get your eShop cards over at our website, switchup.gg, and doing so will get you 5% of your purchase price back as cashback. And there's a link down there to Play Asia if you're looking to import anything. Again, use the link and the code stated and you get yourself 5% off your order from there too. A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.